you got home, and then days later we went to lockdown.
Yeah.
So then what did you do?
What then I got.
I've got nothing to say yes to now.
Well, I got that was it. I got a lot of phone calls of this bit of work's cancelled, that bit of work's cancelled, etc., etc. The studio's closing, and I was getting a bit edgy about it. But then my friend Kat, who runs a festival in Oxford called Folk Weekend Oxford, I used to do the sound for that festival. I haven't for a few years, but previous years I'd been her kind of technician. Kat and I have done loads of other work together since. And her festival is an April festival, so they were thrown under a bus with all of this. But she's another one of those. I think there's a reason we've done so much work together. She's also very bloody minded, and she basically decided. Well, I think what happened was she'd been looking at, was it going to be possible to take the festival online, and then because everyone could see lockdown was coming. And then she saw our live stream from Switzerland and essentially went, yes, it is possible to take it online.
Yeah.
So then she gave me a call and went, I'm going to move the entire festival online. It's 50 plus events across a weekend. Do you think we can do it? So...
Yeah, what did he say? Yes.
I went, well, we can give
Technically, you're asking the wrong guy, but yes.
we can give it a try. So, yeah, we went to do that, which we did. And it worked, and it was a bit scary, and some of it was better than other bits, but as a whole, it worked, and they sold tickets, and people paid for it, and we were doing it all through Zoom then, as opposed to Facebook. She wanted to implement a paywall, so it was... I think her whole ethos was originally to not devalue anything, that we were putting a lot of effort into the infrastructure of that festival,
which
sound
is difficult
and everything.
Considering the circumstances, but
yeah. So they just kept it exactly the same, not knowing what would happen, but people bought tickets. And
how did they keep it the same? In what way?
In the same way as that they had. So the festival runs on like a couple of different tiers of event anyway. So you'd have like ticketed events in a theatre, and then you'd have free events on a stage in the city or something along those lines. So what they did with more local artists, say, and then the ticketed ones would be like national or international known artists. So they kept the ticketed events, which would be on Zoom, which you could only access with a Zoom link, which you only got if you bought a ticket.
Right. Makes sense.
And then they social media streamed what would have been the local stuff on like the outdoor stages type thing, so anyone could access it.
So little did we know that's the way. I mean, every festival's virtual now, isn't it?
Exactly. So we did all of that, and people bought into it, and it made money, and we paid all the artists properly. So Kat said, let's do another one. To me, essentially, let's do a May Day event, because May Day is a big thing on the folk scene. So we did a May Day event, and same thing, loads of people bought tickets. It was really successful. We paid the artist, and like, I'm not talking nothing, like thousands. It went well. So we thought, well, let's do a few more, and then before we know it, we were doing 2 gigs a week.
There you go. For as long as there is no venues to go to, people are going to happily do that, because there's no alternative.
Exactly. So we've moved away from the Folk Weekend Oxford thing, because they're a not-for-profit, and we were making money from it as a business as well as paying the artists. So we've set up as Live to Your Living Room.
This
is
is
our
what
own
I was going to
thing.
talk about. I was wondering if that was the same thing. Live to Your Living Room, which you've just launched.
So that's how that's
recently.
come out. So we've been developing that so that it can be... What we were doing originally was we were kind of relying on the goodwill of the artists to have some gear and me telling them how to set it up, and I would describe stuff. That's what we were doing. But what we've been gradually doing is investing in equipment ourselves, and I've been formulating, I should say, a way in which I can engineer the gigs as I would do in a venue, but from my house while the artist is still in their house.
Yeah.
So I still mix. So now we're at a point.
You just need the feeds to come in and be good quality.
Yeah. So I still mix the gigs like I would do, and so
on the fly.
Right. And it's all totally live. There's no recording afterwards. You pay a ticket, you watch it, and if you miss it, you miss it. It's like as live can be.
That's good.
We do it on Zoom so that the artists can see an audience. People put their cameras on; they can see lots of little boxes of an audience. Yeah. They unmute themselves and applaud after numbers. Like it's real time. We incorporate a Q&A element so people can ask questions. It's a bit more like a meet the artist type thing as well. It's quite intimate. And I send them a bunch of gear to do it. So I've got 2 flight cases of equipment flying around the country at any one time at the moment to the
That's
gigs.
a good idea. So that's a bit like a touring band where they have
Pretty much
on the bigger level where they have a separate setup going ahead of them to the
Yeah,
next show.
very
so
much,
when they
yeah.
finish, when they get there, that one's done. Ready to
Yeah,
go.
I'm Parcel Force's biggest complainer at the moment, but or customer. I'm just
I saw you posted something
Oh,
about.
it's just my life in Parcel
I
Force.
didn't realise. Was that about that?
Yeah,
though?
yeah.
I see. I didn't realise.
Because the turnaround. Well, this is why we've got 2 sets of gear now. We had 1 originally. So this was the setup relied on 2 gigs a week, a Wednesday and a Saturday, to give enough time for Parcel Force to collect the parcel on a Thursday, deliver it on a Friday, gig on a Saturday, collect on Monday, deliver on a Tuesday, gig on a Wednesday. That was the
Doesn't
setup.
give you much leeway, does it?
And this stuff started to go wrong eventually. Nothing that's been unfixable yet, but it has. One did mean me driving around the country to collect something from somewhere and take it to the next place myself. So we've got 2 sets of gear going around now. So yeah, we're doing that. And
so those gigs, once they've happened, no one can see. They're not like available for.
Nope.
But you could record them.
Yeah, but the reason we didn't originally is because we thought we were going to run into GDPR issues with people with cameras on and their names. We'd have to get permission to be able to broadcast that.
Right.
But then there is ways of not doing it, but we're still stuck to not doing it because we're trying to keep the idea that if you bought a ticket to a gig, you'd go to the gig and it's very much a live experience. And we want it to be a live experience for the audience and for the artist.
Yeah.
As much as it...
As spontaneous as
Exactly,
a gig would be.
exactly. We don't want it so that an artist is playing to 3 people and then 85 watch it whenever they want to.
Well, you find out most people are watching it when you weren't even...
Well, we don't know that, but just...
No, but that does happen.
Could be.
That
yeah,
does happen
exactly.
sometimes.
Exactly.
You find out more people have watched it afterwards than when it actually
Exactly,
happened.
and the whole... We're trying to create as much of a live experience as it is possible to create at the moment.
The only reason I asked was because what you could do, if you could rebroadcast it, is have like a Patreon thing.
Yeah.
So if people are paying a monthly subscription and they couldn't see it, or
we are thinking about looking at potential subscription models and that kind of thing as we develop.
That's very popular these days.
Yeah. We just haven't quite hit on how it's going to work yet, and because now we're in kind of the infancy of this.
Yeah, you just need to bash the gigs out first and just...
That's it, exactly. Which
get
is
that,
what we're
get
doing.
that finely tuned as possible so you know it works.
But I think there's longevity in it, because we've been chatting to... some of the most interesting stuff that's come out of it is having conversations with audience members and artists alike about just little things. So a lot of people are getting in touch saying... Thank you so much for doing this. One, it's really great to have this at a time when there's no live music. But secondly, the most surprising thing was getting loads of people saying, I can't access live gigs normally. I've got this disability, that anxiety problem, young kids, I look after my mum, whatever. I live in the States and most of the British UK folk artists only tour in the UK. Any number of reasons. We've got people watching from all over the world getting in touch saying, I would never normally get to this gig, so... this is amazing. So we're starting to say when the world returns to normal, whatever that is, whenever that is, the music industry is screwed and it's going to be, on the grapevine, we're looking at 2022 before.
People going back to venues is probably going to be the last things that they will allow.
Exactly. And by which point, there's not going to be any venues and there's going to be no artists and no infrastructure.
But they might all have to adapt to this work in this kind of way.
Yeah. So even when that happens, even when tours are happening as normal, we're starting to talk to artists about the idea of scheduling in an online show as well as the dates that they're doing around the country. So particularly because we could stick them in a dead date where they're playing Exeter on Tuesday and Glasgow on Thursday, and so on Wednesday we're thinking, why don't you do half your drive and stop somewhere halfway up, and we'll do you an online show at that stage, and that'll be available for people who can't access your gigs normally, or
I think a lot of people will be coming to this revelation as well. But by the time we do get back to some sort of normality, and when they let people in, people will have established this way of doing gigs anyway. So they probably won't want it to stop.
So I think there'll be a way. I think they'll be able to sit side by side. I think there's a long term in it. And me and Kat have basically just said, if there isn't, we might just do this for a year and it'll be fun. And we
won't lose any money, hopefully.
No, and we're plowing tons of money back into the music industry, and we're the only real good news story in that sense that's going around. But I don't know what the latest figures are, but we must be about £60,000, £60,000 to £70,000 into the industry now. That's paying artists sound technicians. I don't do all the gigs anymore. I've got someone else who does some as well.
Yeah.
Just all the infrastructure behind the arts. We're trying to make sure we pay the band's agents. We're trying to make sure we pay every step of it out of everything we do.
Would normally be paid.
Exactly, just to try and feed some money into the industry as much as we can.
So, is there any like tips for what you would suggest someone when they send you something, how it's like to get you in the best form so you can mix it better?
Yeah, okay. So it's all pretty obvious stuff, but it's things that people don't do, like name your tracks. Name your tracks something that I'm going to understand.
Yeah.
So I don't want loads of audio 001.02s. Like I want vocal,
like rhythm
guitar
left,
one.
rhythm right.
Yeah, any of that. If you've got an idea about how you think you want it to sound at the end of it, like a rough mix is always helpful. But what I want is, I don't want your project file. I don't want like your Logic file rough mixed, because I'm only going to start again. What I want is the stems, so the original audios, and a bounced version of how your ideas. And I'll.
What do you mean by bounced?
So like a stereo WAV of the final of a thing, as opposed to like the project.
Yeah.
Just something that I could stick on in the car or something to have a listen to, get a feel for.
Yeah, the car still the universal standard of how you listen to something.
Absolutely.
I always found that if it can't make it sound good on shitty, normal, average speakers, then forget about the big fancy ones. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's good. Some reference tracks, always good, like The Dream, what you'd like it to sound like. And they're always difficult ones to kind of explain what I mean. I don't necessarily... It might not be something that is even in the same genre as what you're aiming for. But what I want is a reference of like stuff that you think sounds good, something you
think you might want to sound a bit like.
Yeah, because that might... the things I pick up from that are like... I don't want to hear you say, all right, if you're a new metal band, right, I'm not expecting you to necessarily send me like a Deftones track because you want to sound like the Deftones and you think you're the next Deftones, right? That's kind of not what I'm looking for. You might send me all right, here's an example, seeing as though we were talking grunge before. For me, it'd be the difference between sending me something off In Utero and sending me something off Nevermind, right?
Yeah.
Right? If you're sending me the Nevermind track, straight away, I'm like, right, there's a certain polished sound that you're interested in. There's a certain drum sound that you like. There's definitely a certain vocal sound that you're interested in, comparative to if you sent me something off In Utero. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for... how that works with the reverb techniques. I'm looking for, do I go in and like minutely tune all your vocals? Do I not bother? Those kinds of things are kind of helpful things. And then I guess I just want permission to use or not use things at my desire. But then what I do is I'll mix. Typically, I'll mix what I think it should sound like, and I might cut a guitar part, or I might do any of those kinds of things. But I'm not unflexible. Like if you come back to me and go, I really want that in, then I'll stick it back in or I'll work it. But what I'd normally do is give you my vision first, because I think that's what you're hiring me for, really. Is that, and it can be really easy with infinite tracks now available to keep adding and adding and adding. So I'll be looking at crafting a start to finish thing based on what you sent me. I might even go back to you and go, I think you need another backing vocal or another bit here. Could you try adding me that in? Or I'll do it myself and say, like, either now you do it for me or I'll keep the one I did or something. But yeah, reference is an idea of what you want it to sound like from your own rough mix, well labeled audio. And then the only other thing that's handy is like what the technicalities of how you recorded it are. So is it 16-bit or 24-bit? Is it at 48 kilohertz or 44.1? I can work that stuff out, but just knowing it is
it's easier for you.
Other than that,
it's good to know.
That's it. And then let me work my magic.
Does it take a long time or does it just depend?
It really, really depends. It depends what it is. And the first one takes a lot longer
because you're getting all your boundaries, then, aren't you? All your parameters.
Yeah, and depending on what it's for, I might set up a load of presets as well.
Yeah.
So
to
if
use on
you've
other
got
tracks.
exactly, if you've got like 5 tracks and you recorded them all in the same place and you did all the drums on a day and all the guitars on a day, and you know you're going for like an overall sound for an EP or something, then once I've done one and I've got something, I'll probably send you one and I'll get a feel for when you're happy with one, and then I'll use that as to set up a bunch of presets or for other things. I reckon it takes me. I'll probably mix a track in the morning.
Okay. Do you ever mix it and then like leave it, then come back to it? And
Definitely, but that's all to do with
That was a big thing for me.
frame of mind.
you can get lost. You can get lost in something.
Some things just come together quite quickly straight away. Some things, if it starts to become hard work, I try to leave it and come back to it. But honestly, there's not very many things I mix that I didn't track as well.
Right.
But I'm just thinking at the moment that there might be a lot of stuff that people have done at home, so that's kind of thinking that's a good thing to be offering a bit more of, at least saying that I'm open to doing. But I don't do. It's not something I've done a lot of previously. Mostly it's stuff I've tracked.
So the other thing that all producers are addicted to is coffee. You've always got a coffee there, haven't you?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like. It's probably not the best way of keeping going, but it's like
industry standard.
It's like coffee, beer, and then that's kind of how the day goes.
Studio, SM58 coffee.
Yeah, very, very much.
Have you got an SM58?
Oh, we've got multiple 58s. Yeah.
Cool. That's the first mic I ever owned.
You don't want to get into those conversations where you start just throwing out mic numbers at people.
Well, it is widely regarded as one of the industry standards microphones.
It's pretty much
has been for many years.
Yeah, definitely live. Less so in recording.
Yeah.
But
every studio has one though.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a few 58s kicking around.
But yeah, coffee. Because do you know much actually about coffee, or do you just drink it?
I'd like to think I do, but I don't really. Is the answer?
Because I love coffee, and I just buy like Nescafe.
Right.
I like it, but I'm thinking because we had a conversation about that AmRap coffee co.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, it looks like that's real proper coffee that they've sourced from somewhere.
So I definitely would only drink. I hate those people I got to do proper coffee, but
no, but I mean, like me just drinking Nescafe, is that proper coffee, or is that just like
not to the people that would say that? There's a brilliant David Mitchell thing where he goes on about look it up. He was on the Graham Norton show. It's one of those things that he has a little rant about people that talk about proper coffee, and it's a really good rant. But I probably am one of those people that would. That would say that,
but I just because I came across their website and I was like, and they're local, as well. So
interesting company.
Yes, can we pull that up? AmRap Coffee Co. Do you know what AmRap stands for?
As many rounds as possible.
I think,
or as many reps as possible.
That is what it is it?
Yeah. It's like a CrossFit kind of.
Right.
So they created their brand based on that sort of training.
I think I'm assuming they're going for that like pre-workout market type.
I think
people,
so.
Because a lot of people that talk about, I'm going to say like anyone that can see the visuals of this, no, I don't go to the gym, but I'm gonna make it sound like I do. I read lots of things about maybe one day going to the gym, and you see a lot of people talk about taking a pre-workout and stuff, don't you? So I guess they
AmRap coffee.
Yeah,
athletes.
Yeah, coffee for athletes.
I like the branding.
I like the branding too. Although it reminds me a little bit of you're going to have them on, so I'll take it easy.
25 kilos of coffee. Surely not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the idea. You buy it and then work out with it. Although they'd be gradually getting lighter and lighter as you the wrong way round, isn't it?
I'm guessing it's their way of measuring the strength of coffee.
Oh, it's like a kettlebell.
So if it's like, what strength of coffee do you want? Oh, I like the 50 kilo coffee.
Oh,
it's like,
well
that's
done.
too much for me.
Might be.
Well done. I didn't clock that when I saw it last time.
Coffee has grades.
Yeah.
See, I know nothing about coffee, and I feel like, am I missing out?
Yeah, normally it'd be like a 1 to 5 type thing.
But apart from that, it's like, I like the branding. They're local.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who use them and like shout about them.
Okay.
So I was like, which one? Because we talked about it.
We should definitely give it a bash.
Yeah, I should order some.
Because they all say 25 kilos.
All right, maybe that's just there. Maybe that's just there, a part of their branding. Then
I was wrong. Never mind. I take it back.
But how much is it?
But it's 250 grams.
Which one was it? RX? I don't know what RX means.
RX, I believe, means standard.
I was hoping they were going to have one like
CrossFit.
for the mind, a functional mind, the one that's going to help you mind.
Oh, I think there is one. There was one.
Is that functional?
I don't know if no, that's what they call their everyday coffee. I looked that one up. I remember that. That's what it's not too strong,
okay.
like a mid range.
Maybe it is the RX one then.
No idea.
If you click on it, does it have a
Yeah,
description?
it tells you about them. I did have a look. I like the branding too, but it reminds me a little bit of Arm and Hammer. You know, the toothpaste.
Our RX product is our super strong, great tasting drink.
Super strong. I like strong coffee.
Me too.
All right.
Okay.
I'll do. Should I order it?
Get the RX in, and next time you're in here, we'll give it a little.
I'll get it delivered here.
Yeah.
So scaled. Decaf. Makes sense.
See, I don't understand what. So decaf.
Right. What do
It's
you
just-
understand about that?
It's just got no coffee in it.
Well,
got no caffeine in
it's got
it.
no caffeine in it. Yeah.
Or less caffeine.
No, I think, but it'll still
Okay.
just taste like you're drinking a coffee, but without the druggy side effects, which is why everyone drinks it. Surely.
See, I'm just being honest. Like, I just thought, is that just too? Am I reading that too? It's just got no coffee in it, no caffeine. But yeah,
Yeah, that's straight up. It's like no alcohol beer, isn't it?
yeah. So that's not for me then. I want that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love coffee, but yeah, I've had this for years where I feel like because I used to drink tea,
Hmm.
but then I tried to cut out sugar, and I used to have sugar in my tea. Then I
Yeah.
realised I don't like tea without sugar, so
Right.
I went to coffee. And I
Okay.
like coffee.
That's interesting because I think coffee is quite an interest. Like to move from a non-sugared tea because you didn't like it to liking coffee.
Yeah,
That's-
it is weird.
yeah, it's a bold
I've
move.
tried different teas as well, and it's like now I don't like any of them. And I used to just always drank both, but I like coffee. So
Do you have sugar in your coffee?
no,
Interesting.
no.
Milk?
But, yeah, I have milk. Yeah. So right. So should we get RX?
I would go RX because I like a strong coffee.
Is it the filter one?
Um,
Is that the one that goes in the
no, the
cafetiere?
cafetiere,
Or
that's
so the whole
No,
bean?
the
Oh, there's a
cafetiere
cafetiere one.
yeah, that's what I would get.
Right. So £7.49. How much does that actually get you? What's the weight?
25 kilograms.
25 kilograms. That's a good deal.
Here's your coffee, sir.
Does it say how much?
250 grams.
Okay. Right.
I'm
So,
guessing,
like,
I'm guessing
norm-
that's just
normal.
Like a
Yeah,
standard
because I
size,
get the
yeah.
Nescafe is 200 grams, and that's decent
Yeah.
size. So okay.
I think I'm going to be honest, Matt. I think they would be upset if you were putting Nescafe and theirs comparably next to
No,
next to
just
each
purely
other.
volume, purely size. This is what we'll try it then. We'll try it.
Yeah.
And if the Amrat Coffee Co guys are listening, I'll have you on the show. We'll do it.
I'd be interested to hear what they because I think it's a
Yeah, but I want them to come on and
kind of
explain
blown,
all these.
yeah, it's kind of blown my mind a bit just even
Yeah.
the concept of it.
I like
When
the
you showed
concept.
me it, I was like, I can't get my head around this.
No, it's cool.
Oh,
I like,
but they're all CrossFit terms, so you don't really, unless you know CrossFit.
no.
Then-
What's RX?
RX is like standard.
Okay.
So, in my limited CrossFit experience, you have a set workout, and RX. They would say the RX weight for this exercise, this move is like
That's standard.
100 kilograms.
Right, okay.
Or if you're not quite as athletic as those guys, you can scale it and do a little bit less weight. So that's
Okay.
what scaled means.
Right, okay.
Interesting.
So RX is like the standard.
Right.
If you don't
Nice.
do the RX, then you do a scaled version of said workout.
Yeah. I'd like them to come on and explain
and,
all
and
this.
the RX is always mega hard.
Okay. Right.
Ridiculous.
It says it's strong, so I like strong coffee.
It is for seasoned.
Like when I'm putting the
experienced.
spoon in, it's like it's heaps as high as it'll go. Put it in.
You like
that's
it,
how I
it's
start.
bending under the weight of it.
Yeah. And a normal amount of milk.
Yeah. There needs to be like a key or something on here, so you've got an idea of what the different colours mean.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So
I like it.
They do tell you. I did click through on a few of them to see what the product.
They do have a rating, like a body rating and a sweetness and a
Yeah,
acidity.
I tried to. I wanted to know what the provenance of them was, so I had a little look. Yeah, that's it. Body
so this
sweetness.
is general drinking coffee. Looks like a good middle ground. It's
Yeah,
probably
I-
the one I'd go for.
I was worried that might be a bit weak though, because I always find any of those like normal, like what would be a number 3 on your normal ones. Like, so it's not enough for me. I like a.
See, I'm annoyed now that my only reference is Nescafe. I'm annoyed with myself now. Right, we'll do it. I'll get
Okay.
it ordered, and then I'll report back,
Yeah,
and we'll see. We'll go from there.
excellent.
Because not long after I came here
Mhm.
and had the meeting with everyone here, and then we agreed we were going to do it, we were going to announce it, and then 3 days later we went to lockdown. So
Mhm.
but then you were already booked to go to
Switzerland. Yeah, that's right.
With
yeah.
who was it with?
Ross Cooper and Tom Oakes.
That was
who
it. I
are,
remember, and I remember watching it, and I was thinking, Because we went to lockdown. Was it lockdown while you were away? Or was it just
No,
before
it
that?
was Switzerland and Europe were all just tipping over into lockdown while we were there. And then I got back and we went in about 5 days later.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember you were out there and gigs were getting cancelled.
We had
left,
all
right,
our
and
gigs
centre.
cancelled. We went there and we did one gig, the very first gig, and then they just started to drop like while we were there.
They were just
and it
getting
was-
cancelled, weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, while we were there. It was
So
kind
then
of
I
a-
remember you did a live
Yeah.
feed from like a bar, restaurant.
Yeah,
type
it was
place.
from the woman that organises the tour that we do over there, because we've been once before. She also puts on a gig in like a little it's like the cellar of a castle. It's quite cool. In this little village in Switzerland. So we'd done a gig there, and then they let us use it again to do this little gig.
So I
for
thought, well, but then you went live on Facebook and people could tip. And
Yeah.
I tipped.
Oh well, thank you very much. Thank
But
you
it
very
worked
much.
because obviously you lost money on because you're not going to do your gig.
That was the aim. Yeah.
So did you manage to get a decent amount of money back?
Did all right. We didn't make as much money as we'd lost, but
Yeah, it
but-
all helps.
But I mean, we didn't. Not in terms of we didn't go home in the red. We just didn't go home making as much money as we should have done from
But I
doing
just
the
thought
tour.
it was really cool. I was watching it. I was going, this is really cool. The sound was good for a start.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I just thought people were like, you could see people were like donating, coming across
Yeah.
the bottom of people.
That was
tipping and
another one of
donating.
those like right place, right time things, because that led on to absolutely tons of other work that I've done during lockdown that I would never have done otherwise
Yeah.
if I hadn't done this one. We were just there right at the beginning and being bloody minded about getting a stream out to the rest of the world. It took us a day to work out how to do it. But then obviously people saw it, and we were probably one of the first to put out like a tip jar live stream. This is what's gonna. Little did we know then that that's going to be what the music industry was for like, the
For a
next
long
7.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for the next few years,
Yeah, probably. But then you could watch because it was recorded. It went out live, but you could rewatch it now. So the
Yeah,
views
yeah.
just kept going up and
Yeah,
up. And
yeah,
up.
and then we kept making money on the little ticket. We didn't charge a lot for it. It was like
No.
we threw it out there as buy as a pint. Was the
Yeah,
idea? It was like
yeah.
£3 a ticket or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But a lot of people put in more because it was a band camp thing, so you
Yeah.
could pay more if you wanted to. So, people did, some others didn't, and some people watched and didn't pay, and that was all totally fine. We were just experimenting, really.
Yeah,
Most
well,
of the time.
so at what point did you decide to start a record label as well?
So that comes quite early in it all. So when I was studying, so we had like music industry modules and stuff when I was doing my production degree. I just got really into learning about how the labels ran and stuff. And I've always had my attitude to music was always that I wanted it to be a sustainable career. I was never like, apart from when I was a teenager, I was never really like, I'm gonna pursue like the one big thing, like really making it in a band, or really, like the all or nothing type things. I was always in it for, I'm gonna make my living out of it, because I know my whole family work in the music industry, so I knew that being like a career musician was like a possible thing to do, and not because people are always like, oh, do you work with famous people? Well, I know your name. It's like there's thousands of people that are making a living out of this that aren't.
Because that's the
that.
most important part of it. Isn't
Exactly, that's it. So I was always aiming for like, what could I do to make myself have a sustainable career?
And be happy doing it.
Exactly. So the label was really a vehicle early on, because I didn't have funding to open my own studio when I first started or anything along those lines. So the label was like a vehicle for me to start working with people I thought would be successful.
What was the idea behind it?
The idea was that I could make them records without being paid for it myself, but
Right.
also like not upfront, them not paying me as a producer, which gave me the opportunity to put together like a portfolio of my work.
But what scope did you have to do that at the time?
Not very much.
Another yes situation?
The will. Thinking it might be possible. Those things, essentially.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that was about it. I mean, it kind of started because my dad had this idea that So I work almost solely in British folk music, pretty niche market. We should get that out there straight away. And I come from a family of folk musicians, and my dad had this idea while I was studying I don't even know where to start with half of this stuff. So my dad's a Morris dancer, and as part of that, he knew a guy who was, it must have been in his 80s by this point, who sang Cumbrian dialect songs, which is a bit of a misnomer because Cumbrian dialect isn't really a thing because we're a new county. So really it was a mixture of Westmoreland and Cumberland dialect songs, essentially. And probably one of the only people left alive at the time singing Cumbrian dialect songs in dialect as a Cumbrian, as you'd expect to hear them, unaccompanied. And my dad had this idea that that was a heritage thing that should be preserved. And I was doing my degree and I had some equipment. And he said, basically, why don't you record Bruce, the guy's name, singing these songs? So we did. And we set about doing that in Bruce's garage. And we kind of started doing it. And then my dad started like scoring some of them so he could make a book to go with it so other people could learn them, etc. And then we just kind of went, well, what would be the vehicle for releasing this? At a time when I think...
When was this?
2009, 2008,
Okay.
2009. So I would say self-releasing wasn't really big, but it was just
Doable.
starting to be a thing that people were thinking about. So I kind of was already learning at uni the things you need to put in place to register yourself as a label, what kind of codes you needed, how to set yourself up with MCPS, PPL, all of those kinds of things. So I just started putting that into practice, essentially, to be able to do that. And once I'd done that, and we'd had that out there, I was like, well, I'm a label now. So this would also be a good way for me to approach other people who might not have the wherewithal yet to self-release, might not have the funds themselves to record a really decent record.
Did you have the facilities to record people then?
I just did I had equipment, but not a space. So I had mics.
So could you go to them?
I'd go to them, or they'd
Right.
come to me, or I'd hire a studio, or
Okay.
or I'd hire some mics in and that kind of thing, and we'd kind of build it together. So I put money into it at that stage, but we're not talking like tens of thousands of pounds that you would if you were, doing it something a bit more commercial. We're talking hundreds to, a couple of thousand at the end of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, you've self-released stuff, haven't you? You've kind of done it.
Yeah.
You've kind of. So it's not that much money at those early stages. So I put in that, but only from with a little bit of help from my dad, but not tons, and just on whatever wages I was earning at the time. And then I made that back through sales. So I just struck a deal with whoever it was that we'd split the sales so that I could make back what I'd put into it, essentially.
So you would split sales right from day one? You wouldn't get your costs back first and then split a profit after that? Or is that an option?
Well, I've made a lot of mistakes. Is the honest
Haven't we all?
Is the honest answer. I had really great visions of being a label for the artists, so I split from day one before I'd made money back. But retrospectively, then I never made my money back on some of them.
Yeah,
so
especially in the early days, I would imagine.
Exactly. So as things have grown, things have changed a little. Like, it's not the same model that I use now, but it's how I mean, I lost some money. I'm not gonna lie. I lost a few £1,000s, but not like mega money.
The main cost for us was the actual recording.
Yeah.
Obviously, we went to a professional studio and just...
Yeah, so that was the bit that I
cost a
tried
bit
to
of
give
money.
people. That's the bit that I gave them.
Yeah.
Because really what I was interested in was being able to put records out there that were good, that then people would hear that I produced. Essentially, that's what I was doing it for originally. And it did work. Like, eventually, what my hope was, eventually then some people would come to me.
Well, once you've done a few releases, you get word
Exactly.
of mouth and...
Exactly. And it
you
did,
can
and it
put
did
stuff
work.
online to say this is what we've done.
Exactly. And it did start to work. So more people come to me now that I don't necessarily release on the label just to hire me as a producer.
So
and now
you become
obviously
a bit
we've got
more
this
well
place.
known in the folk
Exactly.
scene.
And then it had other effects, like it started to get me like live work and stuff as well, live engineering work.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing.
you do. You go with a few different bands to places, I've noticed.
I work with two or three acts like permanently, and then do various other.
Oh, before I forget,
things.
what is the name of your record label?
Oh, it's Haystack Records.
Yeah, and how did you come up with the name?
I don't know, actually. It just kind of arrived, I think. I was looking for something that was obviously in keeping with the genre, so I was looking for something that sounded a bit folky.
Like a needle in a haystack.
And then that was the other thing. That was the clincher, was the idea of, like, I was out there looking for young artists that weren't a big thing yet, so I just felt like I was looking for a needle in a haystack. That was the kind of...
It works.
That's where it came from, essentially.
So
I drive up here in a self-converted camper.
I've seen it. It's
and
ace.
then I stay here while I'm here in the van, in the car park.
How's the winter?
It's all right because I've got a wood burner
In the van?
in the van. Yeah.
Well, I've never heard that before. That's a new one.
So I've done many a -degrees night. I just get the fire going. I've got a routine now, so I just get the fire going before bed, and then I'll leave it going in the van for a bit, and I'll stay in here, and then I put a hot water bottle in the bed, like warm in the bed, ready. And then once I'm done in the building, I just go and get in, and then it stays
Nice
warm
and
through
warm.
the night. Yeah, the worst part is in the morning. When you wake up and you can see your breath, and then like getting out. I'm always warm in the bed, but getting out is the
those
hard
harsh,
bit.
cold mornings.
On some morning, because sometimes it's frozen on the inside of the van, on the windows.
Inside, yeah. Not the
Because obviously
outside.
I've been breathing all night, so there's condensation. They're the ones where like you've really got to just grin and bear it and jump out and
Come in here.
come in here. But it's it gets you kick started for the day.
So when did you get the van? How long have you been doing that?
Before it wasn't like for this, I already had it.
Yeah, you already had it, yeah.
But only just, I think I'd been dreaming about converting a van for a long time. I've got no skills.
Did you do it all yourself?
Did it all myself, yeah. I've got
Wow.
absolutely zero skill set, but I'd been dreaming about it a long time. And then I joined a Facebook group for people who self-convert vans. And
There's
then
always a Facebook
once
group.
you've done that, well, it's got like 60,000 people in or something. It's a pretty big
Oh, but then
thing.
you don't start comparing yourself to other people, though, surely.
Well, this was the tipping point, though. That was the tipping point of like seeing people posting every day of doing it, and I just at that stage I was like, I just got to do it. I've got.
I think the other way it could have been Pete Ord joins the group. Pete Ord leaves the group.
Yeah, it could very much have been that. Yeah. Well, and then as I do with everything in life, I just bought a van, not knowing what I was
And said
doing,
yes.
and said yes. Yeah, exactly.
I can do this.
Bought a van and spent
be
hours
fair,
on
you have.
YouTube. Yeah, well, there you
The
go.
biggest something that I can play is the last time, well, before lockdown, when you showed me it briefly.
Yeah.
I didn't go, oh, he's made this himself. I didn't say that. So.
True. You're probably just being kind though, because you wanted to be here.
It's really good. But you didn't no help at all.
No, I put the windows in and everything. Like, there's something strangely scary and satisfying about taking a jigsaw and cutting a massive hole in the side of a van. Just watched a load of videos, and obviously I did loads of stuff wrong, and if I did it again, I'd do it better and stuff. But it's only me that's got to live with it. So
That's cool. Well, like you're on your way up today from down the Midlands, and then you just come up here, and then it's a couple of hours.
it's about 2 hours on a good day, just under, but typically
There was a big accident.
there's a big accident. So it took me about 3 hours and
Oh,
45
no.
minutes today. But that's not usual. Normally, an hour and 45, or if it's like rush hour time, a couple of hours.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was before lockdown, which
Mhm.
was when I just met you.
Mm-hmm.
I met you once, and then we went to lockdown.
Yeah, I know.
What was a typical week like?
So I do 3 days here. So I'd be up here a couple of nights, but that could be any day of the week, essentially. So there's no specifics. I try and keep myself available as much as possible for whenever people want to book into the studio. So I don't work set days. So I do 3 days up here at some point, and then I lecture at, we've just had a name change, so I'll keep getting it wrong, Leeds Conservatoire, formerly Leeds College of Music.
Okay.
I lecture there 2 days a week.
Leeds College of Music did what it says on the tin a lot better.
Yeah, the only reason it changed is because they've just started doing an acting course and some performing arts stuff as well, so they couldn't have the name Leeds College of Music if they weren't only a music college anymore, which they're not. So they had to...
Leeds College of Music and Performing Arts.
That was one, stuff like that were the options, but they went with Leeds
Just wanted to be different.
Conservatoire. Let's no judgment
So
thrown.
you teach what? Sorry, or you
I lecture in community music.
okay, right.
I run the community music module, which is a module that anybody on any of the pathways can take. So you could be studying, the main pathways are popular music, production, which is what I did, music business, pop, jazz, and then straight classical. I think that's all of them.
Right.
And film music. You could take any of those as your full degree, but one of the optional modules is community music, and anyone on any pathway could take community music if they wanted to.
Okay. So did you need qualifications to be able to teach it?
It's either qualifications or relevant industry experience. It's a music college. It's a really good college, and I'm not just saying
good
that because I went. But yeah, their whole thing. it was on my bucket list. Weirdly, when I left college, when I studied there, on my bucket list was I really want to come back here and teach one day. So ever since I left, I've got their job vacancies email, thinking one day I'll be
Something
in the
will
right
come
place
up and I'll be available.
Yeah, and it'll all work out.
We were talking about this with Ryan Hutchinson last time about it's nice to see somewhere that's not just, you haven't got a degree? No. Have you got a degree? No.
Yeah, they're not like that at all. They're really good. And it's very...
it opens up a lot more of opportunity to different people.
I would say everyone that lectures there is an industry professional in what they do, and they all lecture as a side project to doing the job that they lecture in as well.
That's
for definite.
really cool that you can do that. Yeah.
And I felt that when I studied there, and that was one of the things that made me also really want to do it. Like my electronic music lecturer was DJ John De Silva of the Hacienda days. He was like the house DJ when it was when the Hacienda opened, and he was my electronic music lecturer. And I looked at people like that, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to come back here as a lecturer, because I'd feel like I'd hit a point in my career in whatever field that is, that I'm respected enough to be a lecturer here and be doing the job. It's not like
and you'd learned enough that you felt you could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teach it to
It's
other
not just an academic role. It's very much an industry role.
Yeah, which is it's a good place to be, not just like the usual typical.
Yeah, definitely.
It's something, and it's also something you're interested in, which is half the battle.
Absolutely.
Like you say about getting easily bored or something. Which is why it's more important if you're doing something that you really enjoy.
Yeah, well, that's it. And now I've always got some kind of project on the go that's a bit different, I suppose. So I think they technically call it a portfolio career. That's what I was always told it was.
Okay.
So since I've managed to make that my sustainable living, that what those things are that make up the portfolio are quite often changing. But now set is here and that lecturing job, and then I have lots of other things that come in and out.
Were you involved in some of the heavy conversations with Glastonbury? Like, we're going to have to cancel this.
I had a very, very bad. The 3 days running up to it, we were still.
Had you cancelled it before we went to lockdown?
No.
Right.
No, we had to wait. We waited. In fact, we just announced the first 60 acts on the Thursday, and then the weekend Boris made his speech saying there was going to be a lockdown and that the NHS and protecting the NHS was a priority, and all resources were going to be directed towards that. And we were about to start our build, so we had a few days of extremely difficult conversations amongst ourselves and with our statutory partners, the local authority, the police, the fire service, the ambulance service, Public Health England, the local authority was also our licensing authority.
Because you're talking about important conversations that involve lots of people and lots of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we cancelled early compared to everybody else,
right,
because of our build phase. And I got some criticism from other festivals saying, why have you cancelled? I mean, everyone...
Back when we thought it was going to be 6 weeks.
Yeah. And we said, well, we can't build. But you shouldn't have done that. You know, you should have kept going. It doesn't look good for the festival sector as a whole. And we said, we can't... From a UK, this is also a European festival saying that, American festival said, from a UK perspective, we have to make a decision. And we've spoken to our statutory partners, and there's no realistic hope of starting the build. And if it suddenly got clear by May, oh, wouldn't that have been wonderful? It would have been too late for us.
Yeah.
So it was a really, I mean, my medical, I got sciatica I've been hunched on my computer on the phone for sort of 3 days and not sleeping.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a it was the worst time of my life, really.
I can imagine.
In professional life, because it just unravelled so fast. And yet we had to be sensible and be prudent. One thing we did say, obviously, with the Glastonbury was, right, well, we need to, if people want refunds, we'll do refunds. And it was gratifying.
There wasn't many.
It's literally a handful.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary. No one wanted a refund. That's the luxury of being a sellout festival.
So have you managed to move it, all of it, next year?
To next year, yeah.
Wow.
So every ticket is, unless people wanted a refund.
I mean, with the artists as well, they've all...
Well,
or is that ongoing?
It's ongoing because, again, it's not just us.
They'll all have different. They could have different schedules.
They might have an album cycle because obviously people are still recording, so they might have an album cycle which they're then locked into, which means they can't tour.
Oh, they would have been finished by this time.
You just don't know.
Plus, we still might not be in a position by March. If you're not confident that you're going to be in a position to do a festival, and you just can't.
We'll have to decide. You know, so we are constantly talking to each other and to the booking agents in particular, but also to our suppliers, to make sure everyone's at least understanding You know, we try and be transparent as we can.
Yeah.
So at least people are understanding where we're going, and it's not just us. I mean, pretty much now there is a shared thinking that, you know, even with the different rules in Europe, and they are still different. They're all still really different.
Yeah.
Where are we going for the next 6 months, year? I've never been through a cancelled festival before. That's certainly something which...
I mean, you used to take scheduled years off.
Yeah.
But that's entirely
fallow
different.
years, I love.
Was it every 5 years, one off?
Every fifth year you took a year off for fallow year at Glastonbury. And we all planned for that, and all the staff knew that, and all the contractors knew that, and all the freelancers knew that, and the agents who booked the bands knew that and would work around it. And, you know, the BBC would work around it. Everyone worked around it. We all knew. People used to say, well, how could you afford it? I said, well, I know it's coming, so I work out I've got a year off, so it's fine.
So you haven't booked anything. There's no costs.
There's no,
so
it was, you know, something we've always done, and I think most of the festival staff supported it. Not least because of Michael being then a farmer, and his view was, I want to rest the land.
That's
so
quite
I think
important.
we all bought into it, and it was an interesting thing to do, and it seemed to work. But an enforced fallow year was something none of us had ever experienced. I'd certainly never been. I've been through cancelled events. I've never been through a cancelled festival before.
That's quite well. It's a shame this wasn't already like a year off. It would have made it a lot easier.
Yeah, it would have been. But,
when it was the next scheduled year off?
3 years' time.
Okay.
So
funnily enough, that potentially could be the first year when you can actually go back.
I mean, we're being very, very careful at the moment about what we do, because when we first went into lockdown, I think everyone thought it'd be weeks.
Yeah, I think
no one had any idea. As time's gone on, we've learnt that decisions which are entirely beyond our control are made often on hardly any notice. I mean, we're in a bad position. The travel industry, for example, when not only the industry but travellers are given 24 hours notice to basically get out of someone or somewhere or be stuck, is something that I don't think many businesses could work around. And we've certainly now thought we just have to be calm and decide what we can do and what we can do safely. Where we'll be in March next year, which is the Prime Minister's sort of projected, this might be how long this partial, or dare I say another full lockdown goes for, takes us through to March next year, as I said. So it's something we have to think about very carefully.
Yeah. So have you been talking to people, like close colleagues, people in the industry, about how the situation is at the moment and like how bad could it get?
There was an online virtual conference, the International Festival Forum, which normally takes place in London, about 3 weeks ago in Camden. That went online this year, and it was fascinating to listen to the different views. Also fascinating in a global business to listen to how different countries have reacted, and how some, in particular Southeast Asia, are basically coming out of full lockdown, or have come out of full lockdown, went into a sort of partial reopening, and now appear to be reopening because they pushed the rate of the virus down so much they can do that, whereas Europe and America clearly haven't. So, you know, Mark Geiger, who was a senior agent, he left William Morris a couple of months ago, more than that. He said, if I was running a business, or if I could advise you, take 2020 off, and if you can, take 2021 off. Which is something no one wants to hear, and we live in a world now where people tend to ignore what they don't want to hear. But, you know, if you're sensible and prudent, and you're told that, you know, by someone who's very experienced and has no agenda, then you think, right, that's probably sensible advice. So at Glastonbury, we're still looking at June 2021, because
when would you normally start announcing it?
We're lucky because we don't announce our acts, although we obviously had announced a lot of our acts, and the plan would be to rebook the 2020 bill.
Just move it a year back.
Yeah, we'll move everything, including our 50th anniversary celebrations, to 2021. The difference is, this year we knew we had to start building the festival in March, and again for 2021 we'll have to start building in March or the end of March, because it's a big festival and it takes a lot of build, and no one wants to do a light Glastonbury. It just wouldn't work in my opinion. So yes, I've talked to colleagues. I work with a lot of European festivals, and one of the difficulties has been that I see everything from my bubble in the United Kingdom, and the way the French government, the Spanish government, the German government, the Swiss government, and indeed not just the government, sometimes local states and areas with their own controls, like the cantons in Switzerland, you're looking at such different approaches. Serbia almost reopened, and we're going to run. Exit Festival was told you can go ahead, and they were going to go, which is one of the biggies, and they were going to go ahead until suddenly the corona rate spiked again in Serbia, and everything was pushed back again. Do you remember that Djokovic held a tennis tournament?
Yeah.
When 4 of the players tested positive, and a huge amount of the crowd were watching, obviously, were getting positive tests. So you've got to be aware of that, and you've got to be sensible and try and plan against that. But international touring is so complex. So our headliners would not just be coming for Glastonbury. It's rare, even though we think, we're big, and we are big. And, it's a very respected, it's iconic, really. And some artists occasionally do come over just to do Glastonbury, not least because of the media exposure and the TV. Most artists, most international, headline artists in particular, they might come and they'll be doing Europe. So they'll be doing the United Kingdom as part of Europe. They might do Glastonbury, they might do Rockwerchter, they might do Roskilde, they might do Lollapalooza. They might also be doing sort of, arena dates in France, a couple of stadiums in Germany. They might be going down to Greece and going to Spain and Italy. And that might be 2, 3 months, 4 months of work. It'll be planned a year, 2 years in advance. When you then start factoring in travel restrictions, the potential of local lockdowns, cancellations, what looked like a viable tour, even against the backdrop of, restrictions coming in, could suddenly become completely unviable because 2 out of your 15 countries in effect pull out, or you can't get there, or if you do get there, you've then got to stay there for an extra 14 days, which means the next 2 countries on your list you won't be getting to either, so you'll be cancelling them. All of a sudden, what looked like, on paper at least, a sensible tour, a prudent tour, becomes something which is unworkable, leaving, I wish, thousands of fans, I don't wish they were disappointed, but fans, disappointed, businesses having incurred huge costs, and potential ruin. I mean, it's been bad anyway. We all know.
But Glastonbury will be all right, won't it?
You're like everything else. We're not immune. I mean, no one's immune to what's going on at the moment. It's unusual. I mean, I think we all wish we had something to go back to and say, right, well, we know what roughly will happen, and no one's got that information. No one at all. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things for me, because I'm a lawyer, was I didn't realise it at the time, but the insurance market withdrew communicable disease cover in January. In January,
wow.
I had never heard of the coronavirus. I might have heard of Wuhan, vaguely on the news, and you think, right, so the underwriters and the people who do that analysis for them had worked out there might be a problem. So they stopped offering cancellation insurance for anything to do with the coronavirus.
Because doesn't that come under force majeure?
It does.
Which I'd never heard of until this.
I said, as a lawyer, it's interesting. I do talk about force majeure, but never have I talked about force majeure as much. But force majeure it's a legal construct. It's not actually a thing. So you have contracts with a force majeure clause in them, which says if the concert is cancelled or the festival is cancelled for force majeure, this will happen.
So for anyone who doesn't know, how would you describe what force majeure is?
It's an intervening act beyond the control of any party. So perhaps a flood, or your venue burns down and it's not your fault. Tsunami, pandemic, and obviously pandemic being the one we're looking at now. So it's an intervening factor that means an event or whatever you're doing can't go ahead. So, for example, in the record industry, it used to be if the pressing plant burns down, the record label will be allowed to delay the release of a vinyl record or a CD that needs to be pressed for 6 months until they find another supplier. And they're not in breach of contract for doing that. And both parties step away, say, right, well, we need to have a reasonable solution, and that would have been built into the contract. and with that reasonable solution, the parties knew how to deal with it going forwards. I think because we're an event, we were worried about artists perhaps saying, we need to sue you for cancelling. It didn't happen, by the way, and I could say that across the industry. Almost everyone behaved remarkably well and was sensible. But, it left everyone in the industry, the live industry, everyone in trouble. And I feel so sorry for particularly people on the production side, so freelancers in particular, crew, musicians, session musicians who have had no work and no support.
It just stopped.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I have seen statistics. I think a third of all professional musicians are thinking or are thinking of leaving the industry and doing something else. What else? I don't know.
Did I see that? Was it the Flaming Lips did one of those concerts with
inside
bubbles?
Bubbles? The whole audience.
Do you see this? The band, is it Flaming Lips?
It's Flaming Lips, who've obviously, they've always performed well. The lead guy's always been in a bubble. Not always. He goes out into a bubble.
That's his thing.
Yeah, he's been done with it.
Like Zorbing.
Oh, I did see a picture of this the other day, actually.
Yeah, there's a clip on YouTube.
Yeah. But then he got about a couple hundred people in the audience, all in their own Zorb balls.
And I remember thinking, how it gets hot and sweaty in there. I don't think you could jump around for an hour and a half. And
it wouldn't be nice, would it? It wouldn't be nice at all.
I like the idea, and I thought it looks great, but is that?
Well, it's great. I'm glad they did it because it gave people entertainment.
He's found it.
He found it.
There it is. And there it is.
Yeah. I mean, it is a good idea, but it's their thing. But not everyone can do that. And again, the costs.
Oh, there's a video.
How much is that?
Yeah, the costs are going to be extraordinary.
Bring your own Zorb. Bring your own ball.
I know it's but it's not realistic. I think was it Sam Mendes did the concert in Newcastle where everyone was on platforms in groups of 6, so the rule of 6 applied. But I just thought
it's just not.
It's just not for me. Not me personally as an audience member. I wouldn't enjoy that, and I suspect that applies to a lot of people.
Yeah. It's just I don't know what is say 2 years is the time before they allow that. What? How do we adapt in the meantime? Is it all? I've seen some venues where a band will go in the venue and they'll stream it live, and people can buy virtual tickets to watch online. I mean, I'm thinking
that will produce some revenue, but there's a limit to that.
Yeah.
And also it means you've also, this is me being working in the live industry, you don't just make your money out of tickets.
No.
You make your money out of some venues out of car parking, out of food, out of beverages, out of merchandise, and they're all driven by the live event. They're not driven by streaming.
But maybe so inside the live stream is a click to when the artist's playing, a click to go to their merch and buy their stuff as they're playing. You can put the merch
in there, but you can't put the bar and you can't put
you can't do that. But
there.
if a venue with 5,000 capacity venue sold 10,000 virtual tickets at I don't know 10 or a pop,
you might well get a merch sale, and that might
maybe we underestimate everyone's desire to watch live music again because they just haven't had it.
Yeah, I miss it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss it. But part of missing it is the social factor.
Yeah,
that you are with a group of people.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I think streaming has I didn't like the early ones, the ones where you've got artists performing from home.
No.
With you when they go into a venue and they
with
do
all
it.
The lights,
in effect,
all the sounds going into mixing desk and all that.
As a gig, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But it won't replace the live sector.
No, but it might have to be a contingency plan until
it might be a stopgap. Yeah.
I don't know. Actually,
that's all right. No one knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
And of course, what are your feelings on how the government have treated this situation?
Mixed. I think they've had to adapt very quickly. I do find the random decision making or the rapid decision making quite difficult. Anyone in business or anyone who plans events doesn't plan on 24 hours or 48 hours or after the weekend you can't do this. That's really, really quite difficult. And the lack of consistency across different sectors is very difficult. I'm very interested. I love sport. I love my sport. And it does seem mad that you had a Challenge Cup last weekend, Rugby League Challenge Cup, at an empty Wembley. You could have had 20,000 fans in there, all social distance. And yet...
You're outside.
You're outside, which is a positive, and yet... restaurants and bars at the moment remain open. And I find that lack of consistency very, very difficult. And but I don't think it's all malicious. And to be fair, the government did stump up, was it 1.57 billion? And it has been, I've got to say, I know people, I thought they would ignore the rock sector. I thought they'd completely ignore it, and it would go to the museums, the classical sector, to ballet, to opera, arts in general, rather than sort of live music, which I love. But it has provided a lifeline, but it hasn't provided a lifeline for people at the bottom. I don't mean the bottom, but as in individuals who are the bottom of the supply chain, who are getting nothing. Universal credit if they're lucky, but which I think is a stain on the government. But with furlough coming off, I know it's been replaced by a new scheme. That'll be across all sectors. That will be an interesting level of reality which no one's had to face up to yet in certain sectors.
Yeah, because the first movement was the let the music play, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, with all the venues lit red.
So that was just trying to highlight how important the sector was.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree it worked, but I don't know. In a way I feel sorry for the government, but at the time I'm thinking they've handled it, they've ballsed it up.
Yeah.
No one's been
exactly
in this situation before.
No, I know.
No one.
I vary from almost sort of, I'd say day to day, but I think, why are you doing that?
Like all the opposition who were slating them,
yeah.
could they have done anything
better? I mean,
they might have, well, we wouldn't have done this, but they could have ballsed it up on something else.
But it's a weird world. So I went to the bank this morning. Imagine a world where before you go to the bank, you put a mask on. Okay. a year ago, someone be ringing the police, or apparently you do that now, will they? Ringing the police saying, there's a guy just gone into the NatWest wearing a mask. Right? Armed police response wanted urgently. It is a weird world we live in.
Yeah.
And then you go in and you sanitize, and
I remember at the beginning of lockdown, or just before, when people were wearing masks, everyone was looking, look, that person's wearing a mask.
I know. Yeah.
Now it's like that person's not wearing a mask.
No, I know.
Look at him.
There was a lot. I mean, again, that was one of those online digital debates, a polite word, shouting matches between those who supported masks and those who didn't. And there was clearly the government didn't have a clue to start with. And I'm not saying that's not a criticism. No one knew, and the science.
Yeah, wasn't there a clip of Boris saying, "I shook everyone's hand"?
Yeah, he did.
He's like, proud of the fact.
And then he got COVID.
Yeah,
But there was a lot of people saying, "We don't want masks. We don't want masks. We don't want masks," and I think they are to an extent socially difficult. You can't see someone's face. I don't enjoy wearing one at all.
No, I don't.
Really, not at all.
The only thing that's making me conscious of it is old people.
It is. It's protecting other people.
Yeah, it's not really about me.
That's why I would wear a mask. I find it bizarre that a lot of old people don't wear masks. So the bank I went in today.
Is it a generational thing?
Well, the lady in front of me, who was substantially older than me, wasn't wearing a mask, and I'm thinking, right, I'm wearing a mask to protect you, but you're not wearing one.
Yeah.
And then I went into a small shop. There was a man walking around an older man with his mask round there.
I've seen a lot of that.
I said, we're doing all this for you, right? And you just don't care.
No.
But that is, again, a small minority. Social distancing, I think we're going to have for a while. It's going to be hard to wean ourselves off it. Alcohol will help.
Well,
in some ways.
I should say, yes.
Yeah, once we've told, it'll be like the point of we're told it's okay to go back to normal, but some people just will
won't,
be like,
yeah.
it feels weird.
I think we're both right. People might still keep wearing masks.
It'll be the
not
opposite.
that many.
It'll
But
be
people
the
might.
opposite to when we were told we're in lockdown, you can't do this. That was weird. Then to the point where we're told we can go back to normal now.
Yeah.
People will be like a bit fragile.
It'll be very interesting, I think.
Some people in different parts of the world wear masks anyway, even before.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like in Asia, a lot of parts of them wear
If they're
masks.
generally unwell, they might wear a mask in public to protect others.
Other people.
That's just a thing that they do.
I mean, you do see in London. I mean, I don't go to London regularly. I do go to London before.
Used to.
That a lot of Chinese and again Korean visitors would wear masks in Oxford Street.
Because they're like bothered about the fumes.
Yeah, that was pollution. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was pollution. But yeah, I can still people still doing it. Some people walk around with masks on, and they're nowhere near anyone.
Yeah.
So
it
either
might end up like that. You'll just out of habit. Some people just got used to it.
Yeah.
I noticed the other day when it was freezing cold, it was actually keeping my face quite warm.
Yeah, quite nice. I've got a snood mask, and that was quite nice. Well, it was quite handy, that.
So those benefits. Maybe just in the winter.
I've got a skull face snood mask, you know. I'm not sure it's appropriate, really, but
Of course you are.
Thing with the masks is now it's another excuse for people to get on their high horse and start pointing fingers at other people, like, you're not wearing a mask. Well, you are wearing a mask, you sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do get that.
I heard of a couple of people who met people like that.
Why? Just get on with it.
I remember some celebrities or actors putting on. Ryan Stiles was one of them.
Who?
Ryan Stiles from Whose Lines Anyway, the tall Canadian guy.
Okay.
He put on, "Can everybody just wear a goddamn mask? I want to go back to work someday."
Well, yeah. I mean,
But it seems just such a small thing wearing a mask. It's no great hardship, is it? It's not like they're asking us to do ridiculous amounts of things to try and keep safe.
no, but we're probably not doing enough.
Well, maybe.
And is that right or wrong? And I said I'm like a weather vane. I sort of vary as the wind blows.
I think most of us do.
We're not doing enough,
Everything
but
changes.
do we need to do enough? You know, if you're young, why are you being so nice? Why are you wearing a mask? What do you care?
You should just
Tell your grand to shield and just
Yeah.
carry on regardless. I mean, I'm not saying that's what I believe, but it is one approach.
It is.
Shield the vulnerable and let everyone else get on with it. I mean, I'd be high risk. So, and I'm old enough to be high risk, so I'm not sure I should ever say such heresy. I want you all to wear masks and sanitize as much as possible. In fact, I want you to bathe in bleach. And the bleach does kill it. I've read that somewhere. If it was Trump, it's not true, but I think I've read it from a serious person.
Well, if you inject it kills you.
Yeah.
So.
It'll kill something.
It kills something, yeah.